It all started with the girl waking up, opening her eyes, seeing the ceiling, and realizing that this is not her room. She woke up instantly, just by the feeling. It's something like a dream, but it all feels too realistic. She doesn't understand how this is possible, because she clearly remembers falling asleep in her room and definitely not going anywhere before going to bed. She had to remember what happened yesterday, although everything was as usual. The way home, a shower, dinner, and watching a concert of her favorite idol. So the girl fell asleep at the table. She couldn't go to visit anyone, especially since she doesn't have friends who live in such mansions. And she also, out of habit, without thinking, looked in the mirror and saw a completely different person, which left her speechless. In order to better understand the situation and, at least the area where she found herself, the lady ran to open the window. The girl suddenly opens the curtains, looks at the view from the window, and she has only one explanation for all this. These are definitely some kind of hallucinations, although there hasn't been anything unusual that she's taken lately. She now has something indescribable before her eyes. Just from the sight of the tower and the imperial castle, her legs are shaking. As soon as she came to her senses a little, she began to realize that, in fact, she knows this castle. But at the same time, her mind refuses to believe it because it does not at all look like a realistic dream. She feels and sees everything absolutely for real. As soon as the girl realized what kind of place it was, she realized that she herself had ended up in Seville's body, and she was also surprised that she hadn't recognized this face in the reflection before. The girl has always been a devoted fan of one band. 10 years have passed since she started admiring them. Fans of this group created a game with characters that looked like each of their idols. So this game became very popular. The girl spent almost all her free time playing this game, so she felt closer to her idols. For her personally, the difficulty of the game was that she had to choose a specific character, although she liked them all and couldn't decide for a long time. There was also one feature in this game. When the player reaches the final level, he is given the opportunity to change the character. And the catch was that if a person changes his choice, betrays his character, everything is cancelled and he has to go through everything again, but with a different character which he chose the second time. The connection here is that the girl betrayed the character Seville. Apparently that's why she ended up in this body. Now there is no doubt that this is a game world, although she still can't wrap her head around the fact that this is possible. She doesn't know yet whether to be happy about this or try to return to her past life. In any case, she can only hope that she will like it here. At the very least, she has become more beautiful. She has a luxurious house, and so far there is no reason to be sad, because in her past life there were still a lot of problems, and here, maybe, at least, she will be able to relax. Moreover, the girl complained about her past life. Nothing made her happy. Apparently the higher powers heard her and gave her the opportunity to live in another body. She is already wondering what will happen when she leaves the room, because since this is a game world, it is never boring here. Firstly, here, at least she doesn't owe anything to anyone because, in her past life in the real world, she was a corporate slave. Every day was the same, and everyone around her was constantly unhappy with something and poured all their anger in her direction. Seville is already starting to enjoy everything that is happening. She is completely delighted, and now I don't even care how long this will last. Even if she got here for a short time, she will perceive such teleportation as a vacation at the very least. And in the meantime, some person has already come to her. This guy is clearly on the wrong foot, and he is also outraged that she is idle and has not done anything useful yet. Here the first troubles began. Maybe the real Seville could answer him something, but the girl is still embarrassed and tries to restrain herself. Strangely, she still can't remember who he is, although she was a huge fan of the game and should have recognized him from the first second. Here he came up to her all in rage, stretched out his hand. It was impossible to expect this, but he grabbed her by the hair and began to drag her along, not even imagining how painful and unpleasant it was. He was lucky that she hadn't adapted yet. Then he would have to answer for everything. So far she's only heard that she sleeps for a long time and is in no hurry, but is it really only for this reason that he treats her like this? Here they already came to the kitchen. He threw her, as if it were some kind of thing, and the girl had already forgotten how wonderfully this day had begun. She doesn't understand why he brought her here, and asking him any questions is too risky. If he finds out what happened to her, he'll definitely think she's gone crazy. When he reached into some big bowl, she thought he was going to cook something. But no. The guy took one egg from there, asked her to look at how beautiful it was, then turned sharply in her direction and threw the egg right at her head. It was so humiliating that she wanted to get up and do the same, only throw something heavier instead of an egg. Then, He ordered her to come to her senses quickly and start cooking tomorrow because she and her mother had already been waiting for her for so long. To say that she doesn't understand anything is to say nothing. She has a lot of questions, for example. Wasn't she supposed to be a noble lady, and what did she do that he treats her like that? A couple of minutes passed. Breakfast was ready. She somehow managed to do it so that there were no more complaints against her. She even brought the plates to the table. Her hands were shaking so much that the lady was very afraid of dropping something. And if this had happened in front of them, the day could have been considered ruined. Now all that remains is to hope that they will like everything and that other people will not be like this madman. He didn't even have time to properly taste her food. He spat out a piece on the table and started throwing food at her again. This time she managed to dodge it, but if hot food had gotten on her face or hair, it would have been very unpleasant. It seems like he likes to break things and throw everything he can get his hands on. He also wanted her to try her food, get poisoned, and then watch how this food would come back out because her stomach simply wouldn't accept this disgusting thing. Seville can't believe her ears and eyes. She's never been treated so rudely every time she thinks he's not that cruel. He treats her like she's some kind of toy, and if he hears even a sound from her, it only gets worse. What offends her most is that this woman is sitting next to him. She clearly has influence over him, but she so nonchalantly told him not to make noise, as if that was all she cared about. The guy still listened to her. Let the girl go. Although it was obvious how much he wanted to continue, as he says, to put her in her place. The only good thing is that she doesn't treat her the same way, but just sits silently at the table and hardly even talks. Seville said that she would go and drink some water, but she just wanted to get away from them and calm down, because a little more and in such an environment she could go crazy. How wrong she was when she thought that it would be nice here. Just such looks spoil the whole day in advance. Now she's afraid to even catch their eye, although that guy can still look for her all over the house like he did in the morning. Literally an hour ago, she couldn't even imagine that she would be hiding from someone and standing in tears. She is absolutely not respected here and is treated like a nobody. I wish I could find out why this is so, learn a little about the past so that at least some answers to all her questions would appear. When she started to return to the room, the woman came out from the dining room and said that the kitchen was actually on the other side, and also asked if the girl had deceived her. I had to explain that she simply didn't wake up and didn't notice how she started walking in the wrong direction. Seville tries to squeeze his hands so that the woman does not see that they are shaking, and very strongly. She also looks as if she's about to grab her by the hair and start dragging her somewhere, like her son. Even that seemed too much, but she made it worse by reaching out her hand and pushing the girl down, specifically so that she hits her back on each step, while she probably understands perfectly well how painful it is and that she might not even be able to get back on her feet after that. Seville was very lucky that she was able to group herself, fell on the side that was not as painful as her back. The girl was so scared that she thought that she wouldn't survive after this, or at least would remain unconscious. And surprisingly, everything was fine with her. She even noticed how a woman came up to her and started stepping on her hair and hands with her feet. She says that this is because she dared to deceive her mother and brother, the girl guessed. But now she understood for sure that it was her mother. But it seems like she is only in words, because no normal mother would abuse her child like that, especially over such trifles. She put all her weight on her leg and then on her hand and smiled when Seville began to beg her to move away. And she also said that since her father is far away now, she supposedly has to raise the girl. But if she is going to do it with such methods, Seville won't last long here. Just at that moment, memories started to surface in her mind. After all, better late than never. Besides the fact that she had already learned that she had a difficult life, which she had dreamed of and hoped for at the very beginning, it turns out that this world is a little different from the game. So some situations Seville could not expect, unlike the main characters. She is a minor noble who hardly appears anywhere and has no friends at all. When the girl was little, she experienced great grief. Her mother became very ill and died right before her eyes. The woman looked and felt so bad that she even covered her face with anything just so the girl wouldn't look at her. Her father soon got married, but because of his work, the man is almost never at home and doesn't know what's going on within these walls. While he is gone, her foster mother and tyrant brother, Gawain, the two of them abuse her as much as they want, cutting off her hair, leaving her without food, insulting her, and generally making her life a hell's. They know for sure that the girl will never dare to tell her father about this because as soon as he leaves, it will only get worse. Her suffering is not limited to just bullying. These people intimidate her so much that several times she seriously thought that they wanted to get rid of her. My brother really likes to act out different scenes, as if she was caught in the middle of the street and sentenced to death. Her whole life is slowly moving towards the point that sooner or later they will somehow get rid of her. If it weren't for her father, they would have done it much earlier. Under the guise that all this is just a joke and ordinary bullying, they are just confusing her so that one day she will think that this is another trap. But one day, everything will be real. The real Seville tried 1,000 times to be friends with them, to be helpful, to talk, but even her voice was disgusting to them. In short, she is destined to die as a doomed secondary character whose loss no one will even notice. Finally, she managed to return to the room. She understands that she won't be able to stay in silence for long, so she takes the opportunity and tidies herself up. The only thought that goes through their heads is that at this rate she won't live here even for a month. Those two people dream about it and don't hide it. If you don't do anything about it, everything will end very badly and maybe even much faster than it seems. Suddenly, the doors opened by themselves, and she saw through the mirror that two maids were eavesdropping on her. They were gossiping and were very scared when she saw them. Seville, just in case, didn't tell them anything because, who knows, maybe they're the same as mom and brother. Then they thought that since she didn't react at all, it meant she didn't hear anything and started talking about the elections, which were already approaching. For some reason, even though her situation had nothing to do with it, she was very interested in it, as if something inside her felt that there might be some clue in it. They also started discussing that they had long wanted to change jobs, and they themselves were not happy to watch how the lady was mocking Seville. Only now, the girl realized that if you rely on the plot, the most important thing for her has not yet begun, and she has time to prepare before they start treating her much worse. Because if this period comes, every day can be the last, although it is possible that reality may differ from the plot, and all this will come much earlier. Now she has a feeling that if she tries, she can save herself. Although fear is present, but it is not strong. We have to believe that she is not mistaken, because if we relax and do nothing, it could be a mistake. The main plot of the game is that there is a battle and the winner becomes the emperor. You need to choose one of the 7 male candidates who becomes the defender. Then you need to help him train in fencing, teach him skill, diplomacy, reputation. The accumulated money is invested in this. It's just a pity that in her case, it doesn't matter at all which of the 7 wins, she still has to die. It turns out that she doesn't even have to delve into the essence of the development of events. She only needs to think about her survival and use all the opportunities that are given to her. How she now regrets that she chose this particular character because she could have chosen one of the strong or main characters, and there would have been no problems now. To save time, she doesn't plan to sleep tonight. She looked through her wardrobe in advance to choose something neutral, and then she waited until everyone went to their rooms to rest and went outside, but it's not clear yet why she's doing this. Seville knows very well that in this game the only place where you can easily find out some information is the local bar. She tried to hide her appearance, dressed as neutrally as possible to blend in with other people and not stand out. Luckily, this place is open late, so you can take your time and stick to your plan. The employee knows all the regular customers here, even those who have come a couple of times, but he saw her for the first time and asked who she was. The girl replied that she was not a local and that she had some free time while she was waiting for her friend, so she decided to come in to warm up. Everyone is looking at her so intently that she already wants to leave, but she needs to hold on after all. She came here on business and her life depends on it. When they had already separated a little, Seville said that she was planning to find someone and asked if she could ask them for help. The girl who was sitting next to her happily agreed to help. She was ready to tell anything, about anyone. Seville was happy. She immediately said that she was interested in a man named Knox. The girl just heard this name, immediately answered that unfortunately, she can't help in any way, and advised to ask someone else, because she can't even pronounce this particular person, let alone tell anything about him. Seville didn't understand what it meant and why people react to this name as if it were some kind of criminal or villain. She even regretted asking for help in case it turned out to be not the best for her. After that, she decided to take a full risk. The lady asked what they knew about Lady Seville. She replied that she had heard something, but had never personally met this person. Seville began to pretend that she had seen this girl and heard some rumors that it would be interesting to check. Namely, that her own mother is bullying her, and her brother is a tyrant who is even worse than her, creates hell every day, and has already frightened her to such an extent that the girl is afraid to leave her room. After that, they didn't notice how they started talking about one guy who wants to become an emperor, but now he has a very hard life. This is exactly the Knox that the girl was afraid to talk about at the beginning. Now she already tells everything about him. Celine feels like she needs to meet this person. Maybe if they become friends, they can help each other. She is only embarrassed that they only say bad things about him, that he is a thief, that he makes money by harming others. But in some sense, she understands him after all. If a person has no choice, he tries to grab hold of life by any means. Many do not understand this, but she has something in common with this guy. It seems to her that if she were in his place, she would have done exactly the same. And in the meantime, since she had already found out everything, she said goodbye to these two and wished them a good evening. They didn't think she would leave so quickly, and that girl also thinks that the stranger ran to look for Knox. She is sure that if a person is so interested in someone and runs away in the middle of a conversation, it means only one thing. Sylvia switched on the fearless mode, started to take risks to the fullest, and now she is already near the estate where this Knox lives. It's clear that the day isn't over here yet. Someone is busy with something, and she can also hear some sounds in the distance. Then she went further and saw how many knights were training. It was just strange that it was at such a late hour. She came closer to her, said that she was looking for a guy named Knox and asked if he was around here somewhere. At that moment, someone accidentally perceived her as his opponent and began to swing his sword. She didn't even notice it. But by an amazing coincidence, that same Knox saw it and began to defend her. The girl at that moment did not even realize anything. She just felt on herself how good their reaction is. At least this guy certainly did. He probably heard someone say his name and in a female voice, so he responded immediately and came to ask what she needs and how he can help her. Seville tries to come to her senses and already sees a look from which nothing is clear. The girl doesn't know yet that he is Knox. She asks where she can find this man. She doesn't realize that he is standing right in front of her. This man really doesn't like to delay and waste time, so he immediately said that it was him, without even knowing why she was looking for him. From that second, all his movements began to look incredible in her eyes. She sees him as if in slow motion, which means that she clearly liked him. Previously, she had only seen him through the phone screen, but in real life, this man turned out to be stunning. She told him that she had something that she could tell him. He turned around, started to leave, and finally said that he was not interested and that she could go back where she came from. In her mind, it was all a little different. Seville felt offended that he didn't even listen to her. It is obvious how tired he is after the whole day. She understands him perfectly, but she thinks that he could have given her at least a couple of minutes. There is no other choice. She takes out a huge bag of money and shouts at the top of her voice that she has a proposal for him. Naturally, no one would pass by something like this. At the very least, he became interested in finding out what it was about. And while she had time, the girl said that she could enlist him in the service because she knew that he might be interested in it. Now, when he began to listen to her attentively, the lady said that she had deceived him a little, and in fact, she had an even more interesting proposal. She offers to make him emperor. After that, she asked him not to look at her like she was crazy, and said that if he doesn't ignore her, she will answer all his questions and tell him why she is interested in this at all. He has a lot of questions now. For example, what does this money have to do with it? Does she really want to pay him to talk to her? To this, she said that if he was interested in her offer, then it would be better for him to just calmly take the money and not ask unnecessary questions. The girl is so nervous that she can't explain anything to him properly. She even gets confused in her own words. When other people heard what she was talking about with him, they started laughing out loud, as if it was something impossible, and they couldn't imagine Knox as an emperor. Maybe if they hadn't come up, he would have still had doubts, but with their laughter, his colleagues only angered him and helped him agree faster. Seville even felt embarrassed that she had created such a situation and had not thought in advance that someone might overhear her. With a very cold look, he said that he agreed to accept this money and asked to explain in more detail what was what. The guy threw this huge bag of money over his shoulder and replied to the two that he would still see who would laugh last. The next day came, they met him, but the guy from the very morning began to behave as if he was already sitting on the throne. She immediately warned him that the two of them would have a lot of work after all. High status must be earned, and one must try very hard so that at least people would start to recognize it. The girl gave him a few books, suggested they start by understanding what they already had and what he needed to learn. He's already starting to not like the fact that he needs to learn something, but he's still ready to try. It's worth it after all. The guy promised that he would read it a little later because he was training now and didn't even hear her tell him that if he wanted to become an emperor, he needed to take a break from training. The girl no longer knows how to approach him. He seemed to agree, but she does not believe that with such a lazy attitude they will have any results. As soon as the guy left the room, Her brother came to her and looked at her with such a smile, as if he was thinking of something again. It turns out that he just came to tell her that her mother called her and that it would be better if the girl didn't make her wait. Seville calmly walked into her room, asked how she was doing, and instead of an answer, fists flew in her direction. Then the woman took some object and started to continue in the same spirit. Don't even explain what happened. It turns out she saw a knocks on her property and wants to ask how the girl allowed this criminal to enter her doorstep. As usual, no matter what she answers now, it won't change the situation. She will still be guilty and no one will listen to her. The brother started throwing wood on the fire, suggested that perhaps the sister fell in love with this guy and therefore invited him to her place. He also started to think of something, as if he heard how they were having fun there in their room, although nothing like that happened. Seville knows perfectly well that his mother trusts him more than her, so she didn't even try to justify herself. She just asked him to leave here. At that moment, someone knocked on their office door. Everyone thought it was some kind of assistant, but as it turned out, it was the one they were discussing now. The guy seemed to feel that he didn't need to hurry. He changed his mind. He wanted to find Seville to take those books from her after all. But she wasn't in the room, and he started looking for her all over the house. And also, when he approached this room, he heard a conversation and his name, so he overheard everything, and now he has something to say. This madman immediately started attacking him with a knife. He thought it would work like it did on his sister, but now he is wrong. Knox is not easily scared. He has seen everything in his life, so this little knife is nothing more than a child's toy for him. The madman was not used to giving up. He began to clearly overestimate his strength and even said a couple of unpleasant words. He even started swinging this ball at him. And Knox didn't even move at that moment, as if nothing was happening. Seville felt terribly ashamed of her family. She felt that she needed to help the guy, because of these crazy people, something could happen to him. She pounced on him to cover him with her body. It happened so quickly that her brother didn't notice and scratched her whole face. It was terribly painful. She had never had anything like it before, but she herself does not regret it because if it had happened to a guy, she would never have forgiven herself. He himself did not expect such an act from her. He began to worry about her and is already beginning to get seriously angry at everyone who calmly stands and watches this. Seville couldn't stand on her feet. She fell and said that she didn't care what was wrong with her face now because the main thing was that everything was okay with it, and added that, unlike her, he was destined for something more, and if she had to protect his face again, she would do it without thinking. Brother grabbed her by the hair out of habit and was about to cut off a huge piece, but this time Knox was more determined. He grabbed this tyrant by the hand and asked him to explain what had just happened and how he dared to treat his sister. He started to get indignant at how the guy could think that he was allowed to do anything here and started ordering him to immediately survey this territory. Knox didn't even take these words seriously. He said that the time will come and everyone who brought Seville to tears will answer for it. The woman was apparently scared. She asked her son to calm down and hinted to him that it was time for them to leave. The madman doesn't give up so easily. He warned that they would meet again. The guy didn't even listen to him to the end. He just asked him not to embarrass himself and not to make people laugh. It sounded so humiliating that he didn't even answer him. And in the meantime, Seville began to apologize for the whole situation. She says that everything should have been absolutely different, and if she had known that there would be danger for him here, she would not have invited him to her home. And in the meantime, while no one was bothering them, she suggested going into the office and talking about something. She got this card from somewhere and started spreading it all over the table, but he doesn't understand yet what she wants to say with this. The girl started showing where they were now, so that he would understand what she would show him next. Seville started telling him a lot of things, but he didn't understand anything about it and even admitted that he had simply ignored half of her words. These cards and images mean nothing to him. The guy never liked anything that has to do with remembering something. Then he began to understand that she probably meant that thanks to this information, he would be able to understand what needed to be corrected and what could interest people when he would give his speech and promise something. All these plans already frighten him, but this is part of the Emperor's work, which he will still have to do. The girl understands that she herself would not be delighted with such a number of things to do. But it is still better than sitting in one place and complaining about life. Moreover, with her help, he really has a chance to succeed and prove to everyone what he is capable of. She also constantly encourages him, says that he can do everything, and if necessary, she will help him with everything, and maybe even become a personal assistant if he wants it. All that is required of him is to trust completely and do unconditionally everything that she advises him to do. Knox thought that if he didn't try to do at least something, he would regret it for the rest of his life. so he promised that he would do everything he could. Although she tells him that everything will be fine, inside she is very worried. After all, everything is too serious, and even if he manages to become emperor, he will have to try not to disappoint people, as usually happens with those who occupy this place. She had an idea that before putting forward her candidacy, she needed to get closer to the people. For example, do something after which they would treat her better. It could be anything, like charity, giving toys to children, or food to those in need. Then she remembered that very soon there would be a special ball for all those who wanted to become emperor. There you can tell about yourself and, of course, advertise your candidacy in all convenient ways. And in his case, it's even easier because there will be a lot of girls there. He will be able to meet them and make them vote for him, pretending as if he wouldn't mind meeting someone. But in fact, it's just part of the plan. But if he doesn't like this option, he can go with her so that no one will approach him, because usually when ladies see a cute guy, they try to get to know him. But this way, they definitely won't even look in his direction. Because it will be clear that he has a girlfriend and only she said it, he immediately became embarrassed and stopped talking. After that, he remembered that he had never danced in his life. He was very upset, because with such success there was no point in him going out anywhere. The guy is not going to disgrace himself, he told her so. And she abruptly grabbed his hand and reminded him that if he gives in like this every time, she definitely won't help him. The girl asked him to imagine how he would feel if he tried to learn at least some movements, and at the end of the day, he would feel that it was not in vain. She will still teach him perseverance, but not all at once. For starters, they began to dance, at least somehow as it turns out, so that she understands what she is dealing with. Seville doesn't really know how to dance either, but she didn't tell him about it so that he wouldn't get upset and leave a second time. She showed him how to hold himself, where to look, and so far, he listens to her and repeats quite well. He started saying that he was already starting to like dancing. These movements calmed him down. He felt good, and in general, everything turned out not to be so scary. She tells him that he is doing very well and also compliments him that his eyes look amazing up close, and if they really do a long dance, she will be so happy. His face immediately changed. He got angry in a second, and even moved away from her, as if she had offended him. And also, that's why he grabbed her hand, asked her not to touch him anymore, and at that moment she blushed because she didn't understand what she did wrong. It was just wonderful. She said nice words to him and he reacted as if she said he danced terribly. Then he said that he always had problems with any interaction with girls, and when she gave him a compliment, his consciousness automatically began to distance itself. The guy doesn't know how to explain it. He started waving swords out of habit, and she took it as if he was afraid of all these tendernesses. Her head starts to split from the sounds of metal, but she can't tell him to stop either, because she thought that if she complained about something, he would immediately leave and change his mind about becoming emperor again. In the game, everything happened somehow much easier. She did not experience the emotions of the characters, but in life everything happens much harder. She needs to find an approach to people, but some of them are such that just one look makes you want to run away from them and never see them again, not to mention helping them in something. At such moments, Seville begins to miss what her past life was like. There, at least, she didn't think about how to survive and help. Someone becomes an emperor. She was just making money then, and thought that she was very tired. But when she found herself in this body, she realized that her past life was absolutely carefree. Meanwhile, the maid knocked on her door. She heard that she had some problems here and decided to please her, brought a cup of tea, and her name is Alice. She is one of the few who treats her normally, so the girl is always happy to see her. The assistant very often worries that the mistress gets tired, and even when she doesn't ask her to, she still brings some food. Or, as now, tea. She knows from experience that when she works on an empty stomach, productivity decreases and everything can drag on until the evening. While she had a couple of minutes, the girl decided to tell that when she saw how her brother treated her the last time, how sorry she was to watch it. Then I really wanted to come up and help somehow. But if she did that, they would do the same to her. Now she wants to apologize that it might look like she doesn't care because she does. Alice began to suggest that the girl try to distract herself somehow, because if she worked like that every day, nothing good would come of it. She even has her own method. She pours herself a cup of tea, turns on relaxing music, and if she can't get distracted at all, she can read a book, preferably a romantic one. Since she hasn't had any days off lately, she's already forgotten the last time she spent time on herself. Of course, she thanked him for the advice, but she still understands that now is not the time to relax. The girl imagined how they could be embarrassed if they didn't dance, so she went out into the yard in the middle of the night and began to rehearse. Despite everything, She no longer cared whether anyone would notice her or not. Seville even came up with her new moves, which she had never seen before. She wants to surprise people so she doesn't regret the time when she could sleep, and herself too. At some point it's hard to breathe. She's so overexerted that it's already starting to get dark in her eyes, and she's only just started. The lady imagined that many people were looking at her now, felt that she had no right to make a mistake, namely some wrong move, and began to move as she had been training for several months. She realized that as soon as she stopped feeling sorry for herself, at least some results began to appear that more or less satisfied her. She was so carried away that she didn't notice how Knox appeared next to her. He started looking at her and became quiet so that she wouldn't notice him. So he stood there until the very end, not wanting to join her, because if she had said something to him behind his back one more time, he would not have survived it. The guy wanted to practice a little, but in order not to attract attention to himself, he left anyway and promised himself that tomorrow he would allocate twice as much time for it. She asked him to take a break from fencing, so he has to do it at night when no one is looking. And in the meantime, these two madmen met in some office, clearly not to have a nice chat. Mom hadn't talked to him about this before, but today, since a certain day was approaching, she decided to ask him if he was going to participate in the elections. Since he had never heard such a thing from her before, he could not even imagine that she would like to see him in the place of the emperor. She tells him that there is nothing surprising about this, especially since it seems to her that he has every chance of taking this place. She thought about it a lot, and she's also afraid that Seville might want to participate too, and if she manages to win, she simply won't survive it. Every time he hears something like that his sister can get ahead of him, he gets this incredible excitement and desire to be ahead. Because if the person he hates most in this life sits on the throne, he won't survive that either. And in the meantime, the next day came. Seville tried so hard, didn't go to bed until the last minute, that she stayed outside on a bench and woke up there. When she was sleeping, she felt as if she was still dancing, and when she woke up, she was surprised that it turned out that she was resting at that time. This is the first time in her life that she wakes up in such a place. But the main thing is that the lady is pleased with herself, and, in principle, she did pretty well in the end. She especially came up with the easiest movements that even a child and certainly an adult guy can repeat. After the incident, when he left her, she is a little afraid to talk to him about the dance, but she still has to eat. Then she heard some footsteps and pretended as if she hadn't spent the night outside and had only come here for a walk. It turned out that it was Knox again. Only it is not yet clear whether he notices her or not. He looks down and acts as if he is upset about something. She even felt a little sorry for him, although she doesn't know why, because she already does almost everything for him, and it's not her fault that he's not in the mood. Seville hid behind a tree just in time. She watches him just like he did yesterday. Suddenly, he started to practice so intensively that she was even surprised why he was moving so well now, but could not show himself in dance. It's probably a matter of self-confidence, which means that he'll have to work hard. Maybe that's the key to success, and it's not about his laziness at all. It's much harder to remain invisible during the day, but she does it. She doesn't even try, and he still hasn't noticed her. At some point, a brilliant idea came to her. What if she came up with some dance moves that would be very similar to those he does in training? Now she no longer tried to hide, she turned to him and said that she had good news. She told him what she had come up with. Knox very quickly agreed. Apparently he was energized and not yet too tired to be lazy. Due to the fact that he is used to making sharp movements, their dance can be much more interesting than others. This is what interested him. The guy thought it was really brilliant, but he didn't tell her that. He just started listening to her and noticed that he was already doing pretty well. It's a little out of her league, but for the sake of success, she's ready to try as hard as he will have to. First, the girl slowly shows him what to do, then does it a little faster and speeds up as much as it is comfortable for both of them. During all this time, he never once said that he was tired or that he didn't like something, and this can already be considered a success. Now, every time they will train mainly in the morning, because risking training in the evening was apparently not the best idea. She hadn't seen him so calm for a long time, which meant that everything they had already done suited him perfectly. Gradually, she began to add new movements, and she still couldn't even imagine that Knox would be able to remember everything the first time. One time, she even stopped prompting him. He took the initiative and he did it superbly, even better than she expected from him. He very gently takes her hands, her waist, but at the same time he speeds up and feels the rhythm where it is needed. It was as if he had been training all night while she was resting in her room and didn't suspect anything. She wanted to tell him some pleasant dreams, but she remembered the previous situation and so that he would not go anywhere. She simply remained silent. Literally a minute passed. Seville couldn't hold back and still told him that it was wonderful. A couple more training sessions and everything would be rehearsed to perfection. The girl was afraid that he would get angry, but Knox didn't even answer. And that's for the best, no matter how it sounds. Finally, with the dance, you can relax. Somehow they will be able to dance. And now it wouldn't hurt to tidy him up. At least cut his hair, because his bangs have grown so much that they get in his eyes, and because of them it seems that he is too sloppy and unkempt. The girl apologized if it sounded too rude on her part, but he himself should understand that it is better not to go to the event looking like this, especially since it will be more pleasant for him to be among people with a new hairstyle. It will also give him self-confidence. At first, he didn't want to do it. He thought there was no point. Supposedly, he never looks at other people's hairstyles, and it seems to him that no one will look at him. And then she somehow persuaded him, because she said that it was the easiest, that she was demanding of him. And he had done so much that it was strange to refuse such a thing. Since they have already started preparing for the event, they need to do everything they can to the maximum. And a haircut is the smallest thing that does not even require any effort from him. You just need to sit in one place and wait until the assistant does everything for him. They also trimmed his eyebrows a little. They were a little overgrown, and since it takes a few seconds, it would be wrong not to do it, but that's not all. Seville didn't warn him about something. Probably she just didn't want to scare him or forgot. The girl poured a bucket of warm water on him to wash him off. She already thought that there would be a lot of screaming, but he reacted so calmly as if she had prepared him for this. It even seemed to her that he might like it. Knox said that he feels great. He has refreshed himself, cooled down. Now he has strength and he is not even against designing a dance once again. It is a pity that he has a desire to do it when it is no longer necessary. She asked him what is happening to him. She expected at least some emotions from him, and he sits there as if someone will punish him for any word or indignation, to which he replied that he has already resigned himself. That arguing with her is useless, especially getting a haircut and washing his hair. It really is as easy as pie. He likes it this way much better. It feels like he changed something in his appearance. Although that's true, he's happy that he feels better this way, and she's happy that at least he wasn't upset. They were talking about something, planning something. When suddenly, they heard unpleasant voices again, which spoiled such a wonderful mood literally in an instant. It immediately became clear what kind of person this was. He was shouting so loudly throughout the house that it was impossible not to recognize who he was, especially since the girl doesn't even know such impudent people except for her brother. He was passing by this room with his friends, shouting something, telling something, laughing. Then he saw the open door and the two of them. He immediately slowed down to see what they were doing there. Seville regretted leaving the door open, because then he would have just passed by, and now it is unclear what to expect from him. Naturally, he greeted them, asked what they were doing there, but he did it with such mockery, as if he was about to ruin all this harmony for them in an instant. She started telling him that they had very little time, and also that they were in a very bad mood and did not want to talk to anyone. Although she knew that this never bothered him, she thought that maybe today he would listen to her at least once. Then his friends joined in and also started behaving not quite adequately. It was clear that they were a little out of their minds and that they were simply bored, so they couldn't pass by. If only they could see what they look like from the outside. It's so awful. They smell so bad that she would really like to throw them out of here right now if she could. The guy asked if everything was okay, and she answered in a very quiet voice that everything was fine. Her brother just had such energy that he ruined the mood of everyone he looked at. At least from the outside, it looked that way. Even Knox is not as calm as he was a couple of minutes ago. He is becoming more and more irritated. It is very good that after the recent situation, he will be so brave in his presence. The guy asked if they had any other things to do. They answered that they were just taking a walk, to which he said that their walk was distracting them from those who were busy at the moment, and that it would be nice if those few people would leave sooner. He can't talk in hints. But in the end, those guys left anyway, and her brother didn't even start to resist. As he usually did, apparently he remembers how it could have ended last time. The girl always dreamed of getting rid of her brother so easily. When Knox is around, it is much easier for her, although before it did not affect her well-beings. Just a couple of days ago, she felt terrible when her brother was around. And now, Knox made it so that this problem doesn't exist, at least when he's around. It's so comfortable that now she wants to keep him close to her all the time so that her brother doesn't have a second to say something bad to her or offend her. And this was his favorite hobby. Seville also remembered that she hasn't suffered from him for several days, although before he was her, pushed her, grabbed her by the hair, and now she seems to have some kind of rest. Again, all thanks to this man. She wants to tell him a lot, but so far she can't. He seemed to hear everything she had just been thinking about. Said that now they would be together much more often because he himself understood how dangerous it was for her to stay in the same house with that man. Seville asked how he imagines it. He doesn't know yet what will come of it, but every second of his time that will be free, the guy will be in this house. Ideally, there would be some room for him here, so that he would always be nearby, but he is still embarrassed to tell her about this. It is not clear how the girl will perceive it, and this means that he is not indifferent to what she thinks about him. She was clearly not ready for this conversation. On the one hand, all this is very nice and wonderful, but they are not yet close enough for her to understand what to think about it. He just asked her not to worry about it because he himself would definitely think about how to arrange all this, especially since now it was in his personal interest to ensure her safety. After all, she is the person who will help him achieve the greatest success in life, and at the very least, he just doesn't want her to suffer from her brother. He would help her with this, even just like that, just because he is a man. The girl doesn't know what to think about this. She has two mixed emotions. She feels like he doesn't owe her anything, and she's also very pleased that he's even thinking about protecting her. And they didn't even discuss it or agree on anything like that. At the same time, Seville can no longer imagine her life without this man. With him, she finally felt comfortable, felt the freedom that her brother had been destroying day after day all this time. She was his toy. She was afraid to even be in the same room with him. And now, if he hadn't come into her room, she wouldn't even remember him. Although everyone knows Knox as a cold person who is dangerous to deal with, she got to know him from a completely different side. And if suddenly, under some circumstances, he disappears from her life, she will again end up in hell and will not be able to live without him. The more she gets to know him, the more she becomes confident that she made the right choice when she decided to make him a great man. He absolutely deserves it. And she doesn't know yet that he already has a competitor, her brother. And when they find out about this, the two of them will have 1,000 times more motivation. It's a pity that the girl didn't hear that conversation when his mother suggested that he put forward his candidacy. No matter how they sit in one place now and would be as productive as possible in this regard. Or maybe it's for the best. They will calmly go towards their goal without looking around, being in constant stress. In the meantime, they decided to learn from today's mistake, and from this day on, they will try to talk and do everything that concerns their joint business to seal it somewhere in a remote place so that no one will disturb them. Because it is really very important. They could have done something else during this time, but they just got distracted and are still standing in one place, and so an hour, 2 hours, or more will pass. She asked him what he thought about it, and he replied that firstly, if they were going to see each other in this house, then there wasn't a single room where her brother couldn't go, so they either had to look for another place or lock the door. Although, considering that person, he can only go crazy, and such emotions very easily provoke Knox, and then he will definitely not be able to control himself. Very unexpectedly, he wanted to say goodbye. Once a day, it is very important for him to be alone, to take a walk, because otherwise he quickly gets tired of being with people. Seville didn't really like the way they said goodbye. She felt like something was wrong. She felt sad and a little unpleasant. But he could have at least somehow explained it and not left so abruptly. As the guy walks down the hallway, memories of how they first met flash before his eyes, and he also wonders why he's even thinking about this, and it's starting to make him wary. After all, he is very categorical in terms of any kind of relationship. He is not mentally ready for this, and he is frightened by even the slightest thoughts that he thinks about her, even when they just said goodbyes. It is possible that in fact he left before he got too used to her and spent at least some time alone. As a result, they did not see each other until the end of the day. The night passed, the next day came, and Seville already had some fear that everything might not go according to plan. The most noble aristocrats and socialites gathered in this huge hall. Some of them had already started dancing, although the main dance would be a little later. Apparently, people are in such a great mood that they don't waste the opportunity and just do what they want. Everyone is looking at each other, giving compliments. There is not even a hint that something could go wrong. The atmosphere is so pleasant and bright that this has not happened for a long time. Some are waiting for their yes. Some have already met new people, but this is only the beginning. The main characters have already started to appear. Everyone started to pay attention to this guy from the first second he came in here. After all, his appearance is very eye-catching, and it is simply impossible not to notice him. He is very serious, but at the same time he smiles sweetly and greets everyone who comes up to him. He personally hasn't been to such events for a very long time, so he is especially pleased to visit here and spend time in such company. His lady loves live music very much. She started enjoying it from the first second, as soon as she saw that they were playing the violin here. At some point, they completely stopped noticing everyone around them and started dancing a slow dance, because it was their common hobby. Even though the guy is acting calm, it's still clear that he's a little tense. In situations like this, it's important to understand that he's not the only one. Here, everyone who is even slightly famous is worried and doesn't want to show themselves in a bad light. Moreover, in his case, there is nothing to worry about at all. Here, literally almost every person treats him very well, and those with whom he personally greeted are generally happy. They want to say hello to him. Not to attract attention, but just like that, some ladies even complimented his girlfriend, who also looks very good. The people here are so friendly and kind that it is unlikely that anything could happen that could ruin the event. A couple of minutes passed. Another person appeared in the hall, who had prepared for this day more than anyone else and was clearly worried, no less than that blonde man. He walks very slowly, tries not to hurry so as not to ruin his reputation. Still, it is necessary to make it so that people see him and begin to treat him with respect. It so happened that no one noticed him for a couple of minutes, because a large group had gathered in the center of the room, and they were discussing something. But as soon as one girl noticed him, then she told her friend about it and so on, so that everyone turned to look at him. Since they had not seen him before, did not expect to see him here, his appearance caused a storm of emotions, mostly good ones. What can I say? When he started to walk further, everyone moved aside to give him the way, which means that he definitely already has some slight authority. He tries not to look too menacing so as not to scare anyone. It would still be nice if someone came up to meet him. With his first mission, to appear spectacularly and attract as much attention to himself as possible, he did a great job. Now it will be interesting to see what will happen when Seville joins him, who is also a little unsure of herself. At that moment, he began to remember how it all began, how the girl tried to prepare him, how much she came up with, how hard she tried to persuade him to do anything. Now he understands why it was done. He began to remember what he looked like just a couple of days ago, and now he seems like a new person. And in the meantime, in order not to look as if he was embarrassed by someone, he began to very slowly turn his head to the side to see what was here and how. Suddenly, he remembered that the girl should arrive almost at the same time as him, but he has been here for half an hour already and she is still not here. He carefully looks at everyone around, but in the whole room, there is not a single girl with pink hair. He was already starting to panic. Given the fact that she is a very punctual person and could not possibly have stayed so long, she clearly has some kind of problem. He started to go over in his head all the possible situations that could happen so that she couldn't come to him. And the only person who could arrange this and ruin such an important day for her was her brother, who could come up with anything. In fact, he is thinking absolutely correctly, in the right direction. It's just a pity that he is not yet sure of this, and it seems to him that this cannot be. On the outskirts of the city, there is a small establishment where people usually like to come after work and relax. It's never quiet here. You can even hear the street, how noisy it is. Everyone knows each other here, it would seem. What does the disappearance of Seville have to do with it? But everything is much more logical than it might seem. There is one room in this place that is locked. And since it is very noisy around, no one hears her knocking on the door and trying to call someone for help. Not only is she locked up here, but she doesn't even have normal clothes on. She's in her pajamas. And even if she succeeds, she'll be ashamed to stand in front of people like that. It is still unclear how she ended up here, and in such a remote place from the estate. And considering the fact that it happened right before the start of the event, she has no idea how to shout to even one person. And even if she does, it's unlikely that anyone will be able to knock down the door and let her out of here. The person who left her here probably thought through all possible options, so it won't be easy to get out of here. She no longer has the strength to knock for so long, and it is also very offensive to realize that she is a fragile girl who is powerless against any man, especially if there are two of them. It all started like this. She was in a great mood. She was already imagining how she would enter the hall in this gorgeous dress. Nothing foreshadowed trouble, and then it began. Someone knocked on her door, then very quickly threw a letter on the floor. She immediately noticed it. At first, I was afraid to even touch it. You never know who planted it. And then I thought maybe there was something important there. It said that something had happened to Knox. But despite the fact that the letter didn't even contain the sender's name or any other information, she believed it and started to get ready to look for him. It only indicated the place where the guy could be found. And at that moment, it wouldn't hurt for her to think about how a stranger who saw that Knox was in danger found out her address and managed to send a letter that should have arrived at least a couple of hours later, which meant it was sent in advance. She had too many questions then. But then she thought of only one thing: to quickly find him and find out what happened. After all, they had an important day ahead, or rather, a night. In order not to be late for the ball, she ran to him right in this dress, thinking that she would simply find him, help him, take him with her, and at midnight they would calmly go to the event. She found the right address, boldly opened the door, didn't see anyone, and even this didn't bother her at all. The girl started shouting loudly, "Is there anyone here?" And at that moment, some people approached her, who were obviously waiting for her on the street. Someone covered her mouth with their hand, probably so that she would not scream too much and would not attract too much attention to them. She had never experienced anything like this before. Seville was in complete shock. She couldn't even resist because she was simply confused and didn't understand what was happening. It turns out that this is the very address where the establishment is located, but then she couldn't even imagine that she would have to spend the night here. They were very rude to her, threw her on the floor like some kind of garbage bag. They didn't care that she was a girl, that she was wearing an expensive dress. They just did what they were told. And when she turned around, that you at least remember their faces. At that moment, another person approached, whom she, unlike them, immediately recognized. Brother comes in and says that she will dance well here too, if possible. He can turn on the music, hinting that she will spend time here until the morning. Seville just saw his happy face, immediately got angry because it is impossible to look at him calmly. If you didn't think about the fact that it was already too much, everything would be fine. But he didn't finish there. The guy started to come closer to her, and at that moment the girl already understood what he had in mind, because she knows him too well. He literally has none where a sharp sword appeared. He began to cut her dress into small pieces so that she could not sew it back together later, although it was painless. In her soul, it was incredibly painful and offensive. He also specially cut off the most beautiful part of the dress in order to very slowly cut it even further. Seville would like to tell him everything she thinks about him. Maybe she could even hit him in the face for that. But she held back, because it is unknown what else he could do. And also this way, she will definitely save herself the opportunity to escape from here, although it is not to say that she even has one. Here he is already closing the door in front of her, advising her not to break free and not to resist, because otherwise, he will come up with something that will be much worse than all this, and for him, it is easy as pie. So she stayed in this darkness. There wasn't even a single chair or bed to rest in. She didn't want to sit on the floor, so she spent almost all the time standing, and that's not easy. She had before her eyes the expression of a Knox, who looks around and thinks that she has betrayed him or overslept him. At some point, she even got angry at herself for not noticing this shovel earlier. You can break down the door with it, or at least try to do it. There is no other choice anyway. She started hitting the doors really hard. It helps that her sounds are much louder than if she just hit them with her hands. It's a complete hopelessness. She'll just walk out that door and take revenge on her brother so that he'll never dare to do that to her again, or even to anyone else. She has no patience anymore. He thinks he has the right to do this, but in fact, he just limited her freedom simply because he wanted to ruin her event. And the girl's hands are already so red that it's hard for her to look at them. Her fingers hurt so much that she can't feel them anymore. Seville couldn't take it anymore. Sat down on the cold floor, started crying, and just waiting for someone to finally come to her. She just thought about it. The door opens and the same men who dragged her here come in. They asked if she was bored here, but it sounded like they were laughing at her, although nothing else should have been expected from them, I guess. It turns out they didn't just come to laugh at her. One of them started grabbing her hands, and she got so scared that she started kicking him. Looking at all this, not knowing the situation, you might think that she is some kind of villain, that she deceived or did something bad to someone. But no, the girl just lives her life, has never done anything bad to anyone in her entire life, and now she suffers like this. For her, it is so humiliating that it is impossible to put into words. He feels that he is much stronger than her and takes full advantage of it. This is probably the same type of people who like to feel their power. And for this, such people usually attack the weak. At that moment, the door itself flies out of the doorway. Someone kicked it down with one foot, and of course, it is impossible not to notice. At the very least, the person who can do this is much stronger than any of them. The two immediately turned pale and froze in place. First, the guy dealt with one of them, then with the second, He did such a thing to them that they couldn't even say anything. Apparently, they immediately realized that it wasn't even worth competing with him. And in the meantime, the girl couldn't believe her eyes, because she no longer hoped that anyone would pull her out of here at all. This man turned out to be Knox. He sensed that she was in trouble and came just in time to catch these two at the scene of the crime. It's clear that they don't do simple injuries. The guy takes them on a little later. Now the main thing for him is to make sure that everything is okay with her. He has a lot of questions, but he also understands that she probably doesn't want to talk about it. And if she wants to, she'll do it herself. Seville has no idea what to tell him. There are tears on her face. She does not control her emotions, but from the outside, it is clear how happy she is to see him. He started telling her that he came to the ball, waited for her for more than half an hour, and then thought that she couldn't just be late. Most likely someone prevented her from doing so. The guy started asking if anyone had seen her lately. He even went to her house, but no one helped him there. Even if they still make it to the main part of the event, now there's another problem. Her dress is torn. At that moment, he gives her some kind of bag. The girl at first did not understand what it was. Knox just knew that this could happen and bought her a dress on the way. Day after day passes, she gets to know this man more and more, but she didn't expect this from him. It would have been enough for her that he simply saved her. And then there was the dress, but she was a little embarrassed to change in front of him. Seville opened the bag, saw blue and white. At first, the girl did not understand how it would look on her, but then she tried it on and realized that this color suits her very well. Firstly, it is very comfortable. It is much lighter than the red dress she had originally planned to wear to the ball. And secondly, she even likes it more. Although, perhaps, this is because he gave her this dress and that is why she feels so special in it. Now he says that they have already wasted a lot of time, so it is better to discuss everything later and return to the event as soon as possible. He can already imagine how many people are there, and she is already so nervous that it can be seen on her face. They arrived here so quickly that Seville had probably never moved so fast in her life. They just showed up here. People still react to Knox as if he was just coming here for the first time. Some people thought that he came here by himself, but when he returned with a lady, unlike what usually happens, everyone around began to admire this couple, and no one had a drop of envies. The guy and the girl walk in as if he hadn't just saved her from anyone, and she hadn't been in some dark room all night. Knox is trying not to show it, but she is clearly in a bad mood. Maybe the girl is trying to hide it, but so far she hasn't succeeded. He suggested that she start right away with a dance. Gently took her hand and very quietly asked her to relax, because from the outside, it was very clear how tense she was and how hard it was for her right now. Seville doubts that she will be able to relax. She even has a desire to leave here, because the pain inside is stronger than the desire to stay and rejoice. The guy was clearly not ready to hear this from her. He started to remind her how much they tried for this, how much time they spent on it. It would have been expected if he had said such words to her, but it was doubly strange to hear it from her. Without saying a single word to her, he silently took the girl by the hand and began to take the situation into his own hands, because he realized that things wouldn't go this way. Everyone is already interested to see what will come out of this, because it seems that it simply cannot turn out badly for them. He has a completely concentrated face, and she can't believe that he really wants to do this because they haven't even talked about it or rehearsed it before. The girl began to forget that there were people around her. She was in the moment and just listened to what he was telling her. She even felt that time slowed down, and those couple of minutes lasted as if it was at least half an hour. People started to come closer and closer. Everyone is interested in examining their images, their movements, emotions, but at the same time, no one wants to distract them and confuse them. Naturally, the main character who came here first couldn't help but notice these two. He had never seen this guy, had never heard of him, and now it was clear that he seemed interested in him. There are two more people sitting next to him. They also noticed him. And while they were looking in that direction, they didn't even talk about anything. And that girl even got a little jealous because she also wants to be the center of attention, just like Seville. At that moment, he asked her to turn off her mind and just trust him, as she once asked him to. At first, she resisted very strongly. She didn't understand where he got so much confidence from. She thought that it was better to do what she was good at than to do something new and end up embarrassed. He was a little upset to hear this, but he still proved that she was very wrong about him. When suddenly, without realizing it, the guy began to charm her, because looking into his eyes, she believes everything he says and does everything he asks. Knox felt that she had given in, and he even liked it, because for the first time he began to fully control the situation for both of them. A couple of minutes passed, and they had already danced to the end. Firstly, they had no more strength, and secondly, he no longer knew any other moves. They received so many compliments in a couple of minutes that none of them had heard anything more pleasant for a long time. It was so cool that they wanted to come here every day and dance for these people, so that they could watch it. The girl didn't even like the dance itself, but the way people reacted to her. She received a huge number of compliments, and you feel much better. She thanked the guy for insisting that they do it, because if he had listened to her, she would not have received so many pleasant emotions that they both would remember for a very long time.